Mrs. Figg. Mrs. Arabella Figg is the eccentric neighbour from Privet Drive, famous for her love of cats and her cabbage-like smell. For years, Harry believed she was just another dull muggle Dumbledore stuck him with. Then, out of nowhere, Order of the Phoenix reveals she's actually a squib, a non-magical person born into a wizarding family who's been secretly watching over Harry his whole life. It's a nice twist, but that's where her relevance begins and ends. She appears briefly to testify at Harry's trial, confirms his story about the Dementors, and then disappears from the series completely. No follow-up, no personal connection, nothing that changes the story's direction. Her character could have been replaced by any random witness, and the result would have been exactly the same. Lavender Brown. Lavender Brown started out as a quiet, cheerful Gryffindor who blended into the background. For 5 books, she's barely noticeable, until Half-Blood Prince, when she suddenly becomes Ron Weasley's overly affectionate girlfriend. That relationship dominates a small part of the book, mostly as comic relief and as a way to make Hermione jealous. And that's really her only purpose. Lavender's presence doesn't move the story forward, it just adds a dose of teenage chaos to the mix. Once she and Ron break up, she fades back into the crowd. And by the end of the series, her role is reduced to a brief mention in the Battle of Hogwarts, where she's attacked and killed by Fenrir Greyback, almost as an afterthought. Cornelius Fudge. Cornelius Fudge is a fascinating case because he's not technically a background character. He's the Minister for Magic, but in terms of narrative usefulness, he's one of the biggest obstacles rather than a true mover of the plot. Fudge represents everything wrong with the wizarding government: denial, cowardice, and endless bureaucracy. When Voldemort returns, instead of helping the fight, Fudge spends all his time pretending it isn't happening. He discredits Dumbledore, persecutes Harry, and clings to power while the world falls apart around him. And while his presence adds realism to the political side of the story, it doesn't actually drive anything forward. His only purpose is to waste time, stall progress, and give readers someone to be frustrated with. Once he's gone, the story immediately picks up speed, which says a lot about how unnecessary he truly was. Rita Skeeter. Rita Skeeter had one of the most entertaining introductions in the series, a gossip journalist with a magical quill that twisted every quote into scandal. She's bold, nosy, and perfectly suited to the chaos of Goblet of Fire. Her interviews with Harry and Hermione bring a bit of humour to the darker tone of that book, but after a while her character runs out of steam. By Order of the Phoenix, she's more of a nuisance than an actual threat. By the time she reappears in Deathly Hallows with her sensationalized Dumbledore biography, it's mostly just for flavour. Her brand of troublemaking doesn't carry weight anymore because the stakes have become too serious for her style of drama to matter. Rita could have been an interesting recurring symbol of how truth gets twisted in wartime, but instead she's reduced to an occasional cameo whose biggest contribution is a few headlines no one remembers. Colin Creevey. Colin Creevey started off as a bright-eyed, camera-holding fanboy who absolutely idolised Harry. His excitement in Chamber of Secrets was almost endearing, the way he followed Harry around, snapping photos and asking endless questions. He represented the innocence of Hogwarts, the awe of a first year seeing a hero up close. But beyond that first impression, Colin's story never grows. He's petrified, disappears for a few books, then suddenly returns at the end, only to die off-screen during the Battle of Hogwarts. His death could have been an emotional moment, but it passes with barely a mention. The story never lingers on him, never gives the audience time to feel that loss. For a character who started out with such enthusiasm, Colin ends up as one of the series' most disposable casualties. Charlie Weasley. Charlie Weasley is a perfect example of wasted potential. From the moment he's introduced, he sounds fascinating. A dragon expert working in Romania, adventurous, skilled, and different from the rest of his family. You'd expect him to swoop into the story at some point with crucial knowledge of a heroic act involving dragons, but he never does. Throughout the series, Charlie stays off-screen, mentioned only through letters or quick family conversations. Even during the war, when dragons and magical creatures could have made a huge difference, he's still absent. The one time dragons play a major role during the Triwizard Tournament, Charlie isn't even there to help. It's like his entire existence is just a cool trivia fact about the Weasley family. Charlie Weasley could have been one of the most exciting supporting characters in the series, but instead he remains a name that promises more than it delivers. Madame Rosmerta. Madame Rosmerta runs the Three Broomsticks in Hogsmeade, one of the coziest, most recognisable settings in the series. She knows everyone, serves everyone, and occasionally delivers a line of gossip that moves the story forward. but that's really all she does. She exists more as set dressing than as a character. When she does get a major moment, it's not even her own. In Half-Blood Prince, she's placed under the Imperious Curse and unknowingly helps Draco smuggle Death Eaters into Hogwarts. It's a chilling twist, but even that doesn't develop her in any meaningful way. It's simply another step in Draco's arc. Remove her entirely, and the story doesn't lose any emotional or narrative weight. Ernie Macmillan. Ernie Macmillan was introduced as one of the more outspoken Hufflepuffs, known for his formality and his tendency to assume the worst. During Chamber of Secrets, he famously accused Harry of being the heir of Slytherin, which didn't exactly age well. Beyond that, he mostly served as a reminder that Hogwarts was full of students who didn't trust Harry. After that early burst of personality, Ernie fades into the background. He occasionally reappears to offer moral support or puffed-up commentary during big school moments, but nothing he says or does affects the story in any measurable way. Cormac McLaggen. Cormac McLaggen is one of those characters designed purely to irritate the main cast for a short while. He's a confident, arrogant Gryffindor who shows up in Half-Blood Prince as competition for Ron, both in Quidditch tryouts and in Hermione's attention. He's tall, handsome, and self-absorbed, which makes him the perfect short-term obstacle in Ron's journey toward maturity. But beyond that, he never grows, never returns, and never has an impact on the larger plot. His brief appearance exists solely to make Ron jealous and insecure. Then he's gone as quickly as he appeared. Justin Finch Fletchley. Justin Finch Fletchley is one of those names you only remember because it sounds vaguely fancy. A Muggle-born Hufflepuff who joined Hogwarts instead of Eton, he was meant to show the diversity of wizarding students and how Muggle-borns adjusted to magical life. But beyond that small role, Justin never really mattered. His most memorable moment comes in Chamber of Secrets when he's one of the students petrified by the basilisk. That's it. That's the whole arc. He doesn't have any defining traits beyond being polite and a bit talkative, and he fades into the background after the chamber is reopened. In later books, he's just another face in the crowd. Susan Bones. Susan Bones had one of the most promising setups of any background student. Her family, the Bones family, was one of the wizarding world's most respected lineages, with tragic ties to the First Wizarding War. Her aunt, Amelia Bones, even appears briefly as a high-ranking ministry official. That connection could have given Susan a meaningful arc, a student carrying her family's legacy through Voldemort's return. But the story never gives her that chance. She's mentioned a few times, often sitting in the same scenes as other minor characters, but never takes an active role in anything. She's not part of any major friendship group, she doesn't get a big moment in Dumbledore's army, and her connection to her aunt is never explored. Terry Boot. Terry Boot is a Ravenclaw, a member of Dumbledore's army, and, well, that's about all we know. His most notable moment is during Dumbledore's army meetings, where he's one of the students practicing spells with everyone else. He doesn't have a single defining trait or memorable moment, and if you swapped him with any other Ravenclaw student, nobody would notice. He's not a bad inclusion, but he's the kind of character whose only real purpose is to make Hogwarts feel like a living school instead of a stage full of main characters. Kingsley Shacklebolt. Kingsley Shacklebolt was introduced as one of the most capable and composed auras in the Order of the Phoenix, a man who radiated authority and calm. He even infiltrates the Ministry as a spy, helps protect Harry, and stands out as one of the few adults who truly seems in control. For a while, it feels like he might become a major figure in the final battle. But then, nothing. He fades into the background for most of the war, only reappearing toward the end to help in the Battle of Hogwarts. After Voldemort's fall, he's suddenly the new Minister for Magic, which sounds impressive, but we never actually see how or why he earns it. Kingsley's cool demeanor and quiet strength make him likable, but his story is thin. He's all potential, no arc, a character who seems like he should have had a huge role, but ultimately he's just another powerful name on the sidelines. Stan Shunpike. Stan Shunpike is the overly talkative conductor of the night bus, a character who exists almost entirely for comic relief. His main purpose is to give Harry a wobbly, chaotic bus ride and to fill the silence with random bits of gossip about the wizarding world. Beyond that, he doesn't serve any deeper purpose. He reappears briefly later in the series when he's arrested and accused of being a Death Eater, a plot point that should have added tension but doesn't go anywhere. It's just mentioned in passing to show how paranoid the Ministry has become. In the end, Stan is more of a side note than a supporting character, He adds humour to the story, but once the laughs are over, he's completely forgettable. Professor Binns. Professor Binns is the ghost who teaches history of magic and quite literally bores his students to death. He's famous at Hogwarts for being so dull that he died in the staff room one day, got up as a ghost, and just kept teaching. It's a brilliant bit of dark humour, but beyond that gag, he contributes absolutely nothing to the story. He's the only ghost professor at Hogwarts, yet he's completely disconnected from the events that happen around him. Even when major historical questions arise, like the Chamber of Secrets, his lessons offer no useful insight. He's a background figure used to make Hogwarts feel old and academic. But if you removed him entirely, the story would lose nothing. Professor Binns is the definition of a character who exists purely as a joke, not as a meaningful part of the plot. Fang. Fang, Hagrid's massive boarhound, is one of those characters that feels iconic at first glance until you realise he doesn't actually do anything. He's big, loyal and lovable, but he's also a coward who runs from danger whenever things get serious. For all his size and presence, he's more of a prop than a participant. Fang tags along in a few scenes, like the Forbidden Forest and the trip to Aragog, mostly to show how much Hagrid loves animals. But when you look closely, his role is purely emotional support. He doesn't change the story or affect the outcome of any major event. Alicia Spinnet. Alicia Spinnet was introduced as one of the Gryffindor chasers on the Quidditch team, right alongside Katie Bell and Angelina Johnson. The other two at least had moments of significance: Katie's cursed necklace incident, Angelina's leadership role. But Alicia, she just blended into the background. She's mentioned during matches, sometimes cheering or laughing with her teammates, but she never stands out. There's no arc, no defining scene, no emotional moment tied to her. She's simply part of the supporting cast that keeps Gryffindor's Quidditch lineup full. If you removed her entirely and just said the team had another chaser, nothing in the books would change. Marietta Edgecombe. Marietta Edgecombe could have been one of the most memorable minor characters in the series. She was Cho Chang's best friend, the one who betrayed Dumbledore's army by snitching to Umbridge. That single act had the potential to make her a meaningful figure in the story, maybe even a cautionary tale about fear and loyalty. But J.K. Rowling never explores any of that. After the betrayal, she's punished with Hermione's enchanted boils that spell sneak, and then she's gone. We never see her again, never hear about her guilt, her family, or her fate after the war. It's like she was created just to deliver one shocking moment, and once that scene was over, the story had no use for her. Marietta was built for conflict, but never given the chance to be more than a plot device.